Okay. Well, good evening. Like he said, I went to Bible college and I learned under Brother Brooks for 2 years. He taught me the book of Corinthians we went through, but he also taught me homiletics. And one of the things he taught me in homiletics was to just stick to the scriptures. And one of the things I really enjoyed about Brother Brooks and still do today is just he's true to the book. And today I was thinking of what I could preach and what I could give you guys that it would be an encouragement to you. And one of the things I like to do is I like to see who God uses. And how many of you know who Ehud is? What do you know about Ehud? He's left-handed. Most everybody knows he's left-handed. And that's about it. And I want to show you that Ehud has characteristics of who God uses. You know, I like the opportunity to serve. When I got saved, the first thing I did was try to get somebody in the church, and the only way I knew how, I didn't know Bible verses, was to go and invite them to do something that I like to do, which was fish. And we went out fishing, and it was before church, and I promised them we'd get some nice fish. Thankfully, God delivered that day. We got some monster brook trout, and we threw them down our waders, and we ran to the truck, and we threw them on ice, and that was the first time I did anything serving the Lord. A lot of the times I shied away from anywhere being in front of anybody because I have dyslexia. I really didn't think God could use me. You're going to probably hear times when I preach where I kind of stumble on some words. But, you know, God still can use you if you have difficulties. The more you serve, I believe the more God is willing to use you, especially if you aren't embarrassed to do the things that are behind the scenes and cleaning and that stuff. One of the things I want to point out before we go into the scripture is Ehud was a man that was called by God, but he was called to do a mighty task. Our pastor here is called to preach the word to Searcy, Arkansas, and many people say that this is a hard area because of the climate of today. But you know what? He's still called to do it. There's nothing too hard if God's in it. So if you would open up to Judges chapter 3, we're going to be in verses 15, and we're going to work our way through 30. It will be fairly quick. I talk quick, and it'll be good. So the first point I want to bring out, it will be the call. If we look at verse 15, we see this. And it says this, "But when the children of Israel cried out to the Lord raised them up a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Jerah, a Benjamite, a left-handed man, and by the children of Israel sent presents unto Elon, the king of Moab." Can I tell you something? Right here we see that God did the choosing. God chose the man. You know what happens a lot of times is we see somebody that fits the mold. We see something that we like. We see somebody that we think can fit the part. You know, give an example. Basketball. You guys played a basketball game the other day. And you get some guys that come out there and they look like they could play the part. They're a big guy. They look like they could do really well. But they aren't a basketball player. And it shows within the first couple of minutes. You know, when I think about God calling people, a lot of times God calls people that we wouldn't think would be who he'd call. One of the people that I think of is Moses. Moses, in Exodus chapter 4, verses 10 and 11, it says this, "And Moses said unto the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither hereunto nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." First thing he says is, God, why? Why me? I'm too slow. I can't speak. What do we see here? "And the Lord said unto him, Whom has made man's mouth, or who makes the dumb, or the deaf, or the seeing, or the blind? Have not I the Lord?" You know what? God made you how you are. He can use you how you are. You have to be obedient to him and just submit and just say, Lord, here I am, use me. You know, we look at Moses and you say, well, Moses was used, and I understand that. But remember, Moses had a past. Moses, at one point, killed an Egyptian man and ran off to the desert, and God still used him. I don't think anybody in this room killed anybody. I'm just being honest. God can use anybody if you will just submit to him. One of the greatest examples that I see of a man that gets used by God and the characteristics of it is if we go to Isaiah chapter 6, and most of the people would know Isaiah chapter 6, verse 3, where it says, "Holy, holy, holy." But if you read through that portion of the Bible, I think you see some key signs of how it unveils of how God uses man. Okay, so it says this. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the post of the door moved, and a voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, woe is me. Isaiah is saying, whoa, I'm not right. This is a holy God. You know, when we get into the right mindset with God and we realize God's holy, we're wrong, we start to get in that mindset that I need to get right. I need to ask for forgiveness. I need to go by his word. You know, I need to follow this book. What this book says is it. It doesn't matter what the world says, but what God says. And it says this, Then I said, woe is me, for I am undone. He's realizing he's not right. Because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. So he knows he's in the world. He knows that there's problems. Now watch this. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then flew one of the serpents unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from the altar. And he laid it upon the mouth, and said, Lo, this has touched thy lips, and thy iniquities are taken away, and thy sin is purged. Look, right here he says, I'm purged. I want to get right. I'm good. I want to be clean. I want to be right with God. I want to purge these things out of my life. Then he says this, So I heard a voice of the Lord say, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then said I, Here I am, send me. When you have the right viewpoint of God, when you view that he's holy, you have no problem submitting to his word. You should have no problem getting in line with God. And then when you see that he's holy, you start to submit. Once you start to submit, then you should start to serve. You know, sometimes we get things backwards. We want to serve, but we don't want to submit. That isn't God's way. If you look at your pastor, always servant's heart. You always see Pastor Brooks being a servant. You know, I think about who God chooses sometimes, and I brought up Moses. You know, he also chose Paul. What was Paul? Paul was a guy that murdered Christians, still used them. We look at Ehud here. This is a guy that they said was left-handed. That was not something that was common at that time. I'm not going to read in the scriptures too much, but I've heard that from commentaries that he had a withered right hand or something wrong with his right side. That's why he was left-handed. I don't know that for sure, but I've heard that from commentaries and from other Bible readings. So there was something noticeable for him for them to notice that he's left-handed. Would you choose somebody that had a strange left hand, something that they noticed was he was left-handed, dominant, that they brought it up? Would you choose that guy to go to your enemy and give them a gift? This present was a taxation on them. And see, they were captive right now. Israel, you know, they spent years and years in rebellion, you know, and God decided that it was time they got a little bit of what was coming to them. They got into where they were under Moab and their king's rule, and he wasn't very favorable to them. But God chose at this time to deliver them, but who he chose to deliver them with was not who they would choose. You know, how many times does God choose to use people that we would not normally choose? You know, I think of the ultimate one is back when Saul in the Old Testament. Saul, you know, he was chosen by the people, but what did the Israelites? The Israelites chose him, and what did God do? He raised up David later to be the successor, and he was better than Saul. You know, when we look at the Bible and we look at Ehud and what's going to come on, now we're going to start seeing the characteristics of who God uses. The first characteristic that he uses is a man with character. You know what? You can't do anything in the ministry or do anything and be a leader without character. In this time that we live in, there's a lot of people with no character. And we're going to see right here some verses on it. And when we see these verses, it's going to be verses 16 and through 19. It says this, But Ehud made a dagger which he had two edges of a cubit length, and he did gird it under his raiment upon his right thigh, and he brought the present unto Elon of Moab, and Elon was very, very fat, And when he had made an end of the offering present, this was the gift, the taxation. This was more of a food. This was produce that the Israelites made, and he brought it to him. He consumed it, is what this is. And it says this: he sent away the people that bear the present. So everybody else that was with Ehud, he sent away right here. And he says this: but he himself turned again from the quarters that were in Gilgal and said, I have sent an errand unto thee, O king, who said, keep silent. And all that stood by him went out from him. Everybody that was with the king, he sent out. This guy Ehud had such character that the king, who is ruling over him, decided, hey, it's okay, it's just Ehud. We know Ehud. He's a good guy. He's trustworthy. I can send my men away. This is the first mistake this guy does wrong. Is he plays right into God's plan, because Ehud's about ready to murder him and free Israel, but it's because his character was so well known that he had no problem calling off his men. You know what? When we have good character, it's worth more than gold. It's worth more than money, because you know what? If somebody says something that's a lie and you have good character, everybody knows it's a lie. Don't need to fight it. Most young people, young men especially, I got to fight for my name. No, if you got good character, we all know it's a lie. If anybody says something that's a lie about Brother Brooks and we hear it, we know it's a lie. Why? Because it doesn't fit his character. Character has value. Ehud had value because of his character. God chooses men with character. We look on, and I titled the next part, courage. Ehud, he had courage. When I attribute courage, I add faith to it. And a lot of times when we're asked to step out in faith, we have to have courage. And we see here, it says this: and Ehud came unto him, and he was sitting in the summer parlor, which he had for himself alone. And Ehud said, I have a message from God unto you. And he arose out of his seat, and Ehud put forth his left hand and took the dagger from his right thigh and thrust it into his belly. And the half shaft also went in after the blade, and the fat closed beyond the blade, so that it could not be drawn out, and the dagger out of the belly, and the dirt came out, and Ehud went forth through the porch and shut the doors of the parlor and upon him and locked them. So we see the acted out. He sends away the men. He had enough character that he trusted Ehud. He sent the men away, and now we see the courage. He had God. God had him as a deliverer. We have a message to go preach the gospel, to go share it, but it takes the courage to first take that step, to act out what we're supposed to do. He had the mission to go free Israel. Now he has to go take that courage, that faith, and step out there and do it. It's all good till we actually have to put that faith into action. We have to take that courage. Ehud at this point is able to walk out of there freely before he puts that knife in him. He could have went back to his everyday life until he acted out in faith and put that knife into him. So courage, we need it. We need it, especially when it comes to just doing what we're supposed to do as Christians. Let's be honest. It takes courage to stand up for God's word. It takes courage to say, hey, we don't do this. We don't say these things. We don't go to these places. Why? Because we believe God's word and we don't want to offend him. I know a lot of you guys work jobs, and I work jobs, and they joke around and they say it's the preacher, and they will stop cussing around, some of them. But there's some that will purposely, because they know who you are and what you stand for, will try to get you to say what they say or do what they do. It takes courage to say, hey, I can't be around this. And sometimes you just got to say, hey, I can't be in this room with you guys. I got to leave the break room. I got to go back to work sooner because I just can't listen to this garbage. Why? Because who we represent. It takes courage to tell your children. Let's be honest. A lot of you guys have children. We live a little bit different. We live a little bit more sheltered. We try to protect them, but we're also trying to keep a lot of what's in the world out of our house. And there's questions arise, well, why do we not do this, Mom? Or why do we not do this, Dad? And why? Because, you know what? We cherish the Lord, and I'm trying to protect you from some things that you don't even know about. And, it takes courage. A lot of people today don't have courage, and they don't have any backbone, and they just roll over on everything. I'm appreciative of Pastor Brooks because he has a backbone. He has courage. One of the things that I saw also in this was the ability to take charge. You see on 25, you see that Ehud takes charge now. And it says, and they tarried till they were ashamed. These were the Elong's guys, the guys that he called off. They're now back in the parlor, and they tarried. They've been hanging around. Where's Elong at? And he's in his parlor. They don't realize, and now it says this. It says, and they tarried till they were ashamed, and behold, he opened not the door of the parlor. Therefore, they took a key and opened them, and behold, there the Lord was fallen down dead on the earth. Two things I want to point out here. The Lord here, lowercase. It was their ruler, their Lord, not the Lord. Self-explanatory in this room, but anybody watching on Facebook or on YouTube, that lowercase L is not the Lord, it's their boss, basically. And the next thing is this, is now, Ehud had done all this stuff. He took the charge. Now things are ramping up a bit. When you say you're a Christian and you start coming to church, you start posting Bible verses, you start giving out tracts, now you took the charge. Now it's going to ramp up a little bit. There's going to be more people that are saying, well, are you really who you say you are? The eyes are more on you. Brother Allen, you sung up here, and there are people that will give you a hard time that are not saved. Why? Because you're kind of a big guy with a goatee, and it just doesn't fit the picture that they have of a church guy. Amen that you're here singing songs, man. I love it. But, they want to rib, and then when they see you, they want to try to chip away at your character. They want to see you get upset. They want to see you make light of your Christian walk, to give them a reason to say, yeah, they're all frauds. It takes courage, and it takes a charge to get things done. One of the things I would say that we need as Christians is we need to make sure that we take the charge when there's opportunities. This church has a lot of outreaches. It has a lot of things going on, but it doesn't mean that you need to sit on the sidelines and not do anything. Sometimes we need more people to take a charge. Say, Lord, here I am, use me. When I first got saved, I told you about sticking the fish down my waders and getting that guy in the church. But, I didn't know anything, but I loved the Lord. So I would spend extra time sweeping the floors and bringing in chairs and that stuff. Why? Because I love the Lord. Take charge. You don't have to be asked. I see Brother Dustin a lot of times in the back in the short time I've been here, and when everybody's visiting and it's getting towards the end, he's cleaning up and just taking charge. And that's what God looks for people he uses. He looks for people that have courage. He looks for people that have character. He looks for people that take charge, people that will take initiative and do something. Brother Denny, it's a blessing that you do the door, but man, someday you might not be able to do the door. Wouldn't it be great if somebody just took charge and started helping out there? Not trying to take over a position, but trying to serve and better this church. One thing I've been reading in this book about small churches, and there's a stigma that small churches are bad. No, that's not right. God gives the increases, but can I tell you something? A healthy church is what we should be shooting for. God will increase this church in his will. We do what we're supposed to, but a healthy church is a serving church. And there are plenty of opportunities to serve here at this church. The next thing I'm going to show is commitment. Now, he stabbed Elong, and we see him leaving, and now here comes the next part. It's his commitment. Ehud is committed at this point. In 27, we see this. And it came to pass when he was come that he blew the trumpet in the mountain of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the mountain, and he before them, and he said unto them, follow after me, For the Lord has delivered your enemy, the Moabites, into your hands. And they went down after him and took the fords of the Jordan and towards Moab, and suffered not a man to pass over. And they slew the Moabites, or Moab, at that time, about 10,000 men, all lusty, and all of the men valor, and there escaped no man. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest 80 years. Look at this. This guy started something. First he was called. Next, he started something. He had character. He could be trusted. Now he had the courage to step out in faith and do what he was told. And the big thing to me is he was committed. He stuck to it. He stuck to it to the end. Sometimes we fail because we have one or two of these traits good. God's worked on our heart to maybe teach a Sunday school or to go knock doors, and we start it, but we don't continue it. We don't follow through with it. We don't commit to it. And your pastor has been here for many, many years, and he's committed to this ministry. He's committed to this church. He's committed to you people. And that's what a godly man should be. A godly person, the person that's going to serve the Lord, should be committed. It's really hard for a church when somebody leaves, especially abruptly. When we look at commitment and that, we think of so many times in our lives that we desire commitment out of people. We desire commitment out of our spouses. We desire commitment out of our sports teams, favorite players. Why is it when it comes to God that we just don't want to commit? I'm asking this because a lot of times we can get zealous to be doing things for the Lord. We can hear a good sermon and leave here and be like, I'm going to pass out 5 tracts. I'm going to show some faith. I'm going to have some courage, but we don't commit to it, and so we never see any fruit, no results out of it. I'm getting ready to close this message, and I was really thinking of how to close this message, so I'm going to ask these questions to you. First off, how's my character? It's never too late to do right, to be obedient, to take a self-assessment. We're getting close to Christmas time right now. New Year's starting up, 2022. Why don't we start having some goals and start looking at some of these things and seeing how I can be better suited to serve the Lord? Character would be one. How's our faith? Is there things that need to change in our lives? How's our commitment? Are we committed? Can I tell you something? When your pastor comes up here and he preaches and he says that there's a need, or maybe he comes up to you and he says, I could use you in this department or that department, he's seeing that you have character. He's seen that you have potential. It comes back to you if you're going to step up and do it. Are you going to be committed? I can tell you one thing. There's going to be better people that come through here and preach. There's going to be better people at everything that I do. But I know who the Lord is, and I'm committed to the Lord. And all I can do is just submit and serve him. So with that, I'm going to ask you guys to just close your eyes and pray, and the altar's open. But why don't we make some goals for 2022? Why don't we make some goals to take some burdens off of Brother Brooks and Aaron, and let's try to make this a healthier, more vibrant church for the Lord in 2022. Please stand. Dear God, just thank you for the ability to be here. I thank you for the opportunity to preach, Lord. Lord, I just thank you for the testimonies that you have in here, good, godly people, Lord. Lord, I just this message challenges even me to be more alert of how my life is, and make sure that my commitments are true, Lord. Lord, I just pray that you continue to use me and my family, but Lord, I also pray that you strengthen some men here and some women